Tonight on Q2, dangers behind the wheel.
The number one cause of fatalities in our teen populations is motor vehicle collisions, and a lot of those are 100% preventable.
Another fatal accident in Yellowstone County, this one involving a teen, has one organization sounding the alarm. Plus, troubles with towing.
The fees there, they were all questionable, and I just felt like my hands were tied. I kind of almost felt hopeless.
Allegations continue to pile up for one Billings tow company. Now a Billings woman says she's out close to $10,000. And the lack of a law.
Something fell through the cracks at Red Lodge.
In light of a recent tragedy, one Missoula lawmaker is driving for more oversight when it comes to ski resorts. The MTN 10 o'clock news starts right now.
From Montana's news leader, this is the MTN 10 o'clock news.
Good evening and thanks for joining us on this Wednesday night. I'm Russ Riesinger. New tonight at 10, the dangers behind teen driving. With inexperience, distractions, and peer pressure being key issues, teen drivers have the highest crash rate per mile driven. Just yesterday, it led to tragedy within the Laurel community as a 17-year-old was killed in a one-vehicle rollover on Interstate 90. As our Isabel Sparts found out, one organization is now working to prevent this from happening again.
Here on Nybauer and 72nd is just one of several recent locations of fatal collisions involving teens. But one group here in Yellowstone County is hoping to help prevent them and bring more awareness to distracted driving.
A 16-year-old from El Paso, Texas, recently passed away from her injuries following a March 2nd car crash outside Laurel. Law enforcement says it happened after she pulled out into the path of a car. And on Tuesday, a 17-year-old from Laurel died in a rollover crash on Interstate 90. Montana Highway Patrol says the teen was not wearing a seatbelt, and drugs and alcohol are suspected to be factors in the fatal accident.
There is a lot of teens that do not buckle up. Buckling up is extremely important every time you're in the vehicle.
Paramedic Corin Bloom says the number one cause of teen fatalities is motor vehicle collisions. And she adds that there were 42 fatalities in Montana between 2020 and 2021.
When you are looking at 42 families that have been devastated and impacted just within the state of Montana within a 2-year period, we know that we can do something about this.
That statistic is what Bloom and her team want to change. She's the coordinator for Safe Kids Yellowstone County, an injury prevention program that helps educate teenagers on driver safety.
The most of the collisions that we see are fairly close to home, and those are nationwide statistics. The closer you are to home, then the more familiar you are with that area and you're not paying as good of attention.
In the fall, the program had just started its Be the Change Fellowship that warns about distracted driving.
All of them have been impacted by this, and so as soon as they hear about it, they want to make the difference.
Next week, the program will speak with students at Skyview High School, informing them about wearing seatbelts, putting the phone down, ignoring peer pressure, and asking for a ride if impaired.
Depending on what the circumstances are, I would much rather that they are dealing with consequences of the shame and having to look at me than I have to deal with the consequence of them not being here.
In Billings, Isabel Sparts, MTN News.
Meanwhile, the troubles continue for one Billings towing company. As we first reported, Anderson Towing has been taken off Montana Highway Patrol's towing rotation list after an investigation found they overcharged a Bozeman business over $6,000 for a tow. After our story aired 2 nights ago, we heard from a lot of you, learning this isn't the only overcharging instance. Tonight, our David J. hears from a Billings woman who says Anderson has already cost her more than $9,000.
A Billings couple is driving down 6th Street West in Howard when a car forced them to swerve off and hit that pole across the street. The police showed up, the tow truck company came as well. They still haven't been able to get their car back, and they've been charged some big fees.
The car was coming this way and went towards the vehicle, so I swerved here.
We went up here. This is the light pole we hit. So you can see there's still where the car went up off the curb.
Thomas Lawrence was driving with Joni Bulzensight when that crash happened in December of 2023, with Anderson Towing ultimately responding.
They pulled it from the back, damaging the back of the vehicle. And I did tell them about that, and I didn't get a response.
A week later, Anderson Towing sent a letter about reclaiming the vehicle, but that went to the wrong address. And 61 days after the crash, Joni Bulzensight received a bill for nearly $9,700.
It wasn't really understandable.
Bulls Insight says her bill was $3,000 more than Kenya Noble's bill of about $6,700 for overbilling that she saw in a Q2 story. That Bozeman company received that bill after an accident nearly 11 months ago. In this case, Bulls Insight has now also filled out an online complaint with the Office of Consumer Protection.
We're here to kind of get you through the process, and it takes a little bit of time, but the process works, I promise.
Andrew Butler says anyone can go through the process without a lawyer. About 100 complaints are filed annually, and many get settled, with about 5 each year going to the Tow Truck Complaint Resolution Committee.
You see the same companies end up with the same cases over and over again. But the Complaint Resolution Committee is gaining ground on that, and that's why this suspension of Anderson is so important.
In these instances, Anderson received a 6-month suspension for overbilling, which ends on April 30th of this year. We asked Anderson Towing for a comment about the Facebook posts, along with the email and phone calls we've received from others who have had similar experiences with Anderson Towing. The company referred us to its attorney, who says, once a neutral judge reviews all of the facts, we are confident Anderson Towing will be fully vindicated. And Joni Bulls Insight says she's more optimistic after filing the complaint.
I feel a lot more hope that maybe something comes of this.
In Billings, David J., MTN News.
Wildland firefighters across the nation will be getting a permanent raise with fire season just around the corner. The pay increases were included in the Continuing Appropriations and Extensions Act passed by Congress last week, then signed into law by President Trump. It establishes new pay tables for all federal wildland firefighters, including temporary and seasonal employees, as well as BIA funding to offer pay supplements for tribal wildland firefighters. Nearly 65,000 wildland fires burned close to 9 million acres in the U.S. last year. In Helena, lawmakers are close to sending a pay increase proposal to the governor's desk. House Bill 13, the state employee pay plan, would give most state workers a raise of $1 or 2.5%, whichever is greater. The bill also includes a section that would increase salaries for state lawmakers from around $16 an hour to about $22.50 an hour starting in the 2027 session. However, senators are considering an amendment now that would strip the legislative pay increase from that bill.
What if this issue, legislative pay, was on the ballot? How do you think that would go? What do you think the vote would be? Do you think, if you think it would pass 75-25, that people want us to come up here and increase our pay, vote against the amendment, vote for the bill.
That amendment did fail by a vote of 12 to 38, but the bill passed as a whole 37 to 13. The measure still needs to pass a final vote in the Senate before going on to the governor.
It could be easy to forget. It was snowing pretty good yesterday. Steve shared this photo. If you look off towards the valley, you can see where everything is brown, as it has been here in town, but up on the rims, still some snow there. And then also, Leanne shared this one from Bighorn County, where you can see some of these areas where we still have some icy conditions and some puddles around there. Snow yesterday was fairly significant in some areas, including some of the higher elevations. 2 feet of new snow reported outside of Red Lodge, and also in the Bighorn Mountains of Sheridan County, Wyoming. Other places, especially to the west of Billings, picking up around 7 inches of snow. Around Billings, it was more in the order of 1 to 3 inches. A look at the forecast coming up.
Safety on the slopes. It was 1 week ago that a Billings man, Jeff Zinni, died after falling from a chairlift at Red Lodge Mountain. As the investigation continues into the 37-year-old's death, there are renewed calls for more oversight of Montana's ski industry. As our Kagan Harshad tells us, that includes a plan to equip all chairlifts with safety bars.
Many ski lifts in Montana don't have those safety bars. Red Lodge isn't alone there. And one other thing Montana doesn't have is a passenger tramway safety board. 21 other states have one. Those are all shaded in yellow on this map. Those boards inspect and license chairlifts. Montana in the red here, a notable exception, especially when you learn. When most of us strap on a pair of skis or a snowboard, we know skiing can be a dangerous sport.
It's concerning.
But most of us just assume the chairlifts are as safe as they can be. But are they?
And it is always surprising for folks in the east to go out west and find chairlifts with no safety bars at all. And I understand that's just the way of the West can be.
Parker Reel is the former longtime president of the Vermont Ski Area Association, and he has a unique perspective on the industry. Vermont requires safety bars on all its lifts and even mandates that skiers lower those bars or face fines.
They're very serious about that.
Here in the quote Wild West, the scene looks much different.
I think more oversight would definitely be beneficial.
Not only do many resorts lack safety bars on many lifts, Montana also lacks a passenger tramway safety board to oversee and inspect chairlifts, something that Missoula State Senator Willis Curdy would like to change.
If we need a bar, it's something that needs to be seriously looked at.
At least 21 states have oversight boards, and Montana had one up until 1997, but it was disbanded by the legislature. The ski industry and many lawmakers then successfully argued that doing away with the board would eliminate fees the state charged ski areas. That left inspections solely to the Forest Service, and that's where we are today.
There's not a lot of interest in, really tight regulations, but, it's something that should be considered.
Curdy and a handful of other lawmakers considered drafting legislation to create a new tramway safety board after a 4-year-old was knocked out of a chair at Snow Bowl near Missoula. But 2 years later, it hasn't happened.
I could get a bill maybe through both the House and the Senate, but what happens to it after that, even if I did get it through, is a big question mark.
And that leaves us with this: aging infrastructure and an industry with minimal oversight.
Vermont does it for a reason. And there's a good reason there. And again, it goes back to skier safety.
In Red Lodge, Kagan Harsha, MTN News.
All new lifts do come equipped with safety bars thanks to the American National Standards Institute, which started mandating them in 2017. Lifts built before 2017, though, are grandfathered in and don't have to have them. And there are several reasons for that.
It is actually very complicated, unfortunately. I mean, not just costly, but also then you add more weight to each chair, and that makes an impact on how many chairs can be on the cable at any given time and how they behave when they come around the towers and through all the mechanics.
It's still unclear if a safety bar could have prevented Zinni's death. According to the National Ski Areas Association, there have been 15 fatal falls from ski lifts since 1973.